If any of you silly billies saw my community post, which I doubt, I said that I was gonna do a late railway series video for the 79th anniversary as a late anniversary video since I was grounded. Anyways, as I was saying, this is the late 79th anniversary video, me ranking all of the railway series books. Wilbert's book, by the way, not Christopher's. That's a whole nother video to handle. Other than that, I'll get down to the rules on me ranking Wilbert's railway series books. First of all, expanding the universe. That includes introducing new characters, new locations, or just new facts about Sodor. Excuse me, I am not in a good mood today. Let me think of another thing. The second rule I'm making before going into ranking this is how memorable they are. How memorable the railway series books are. And the last thing I want to get out of the way before I get started is my opinion. Like I said in the movie ranking video, it's my opinion. If you want to share your opinion, there's the comment section below. And I genuinely do not care if you guys hate my opinions. Okay, on with the ranking, starting with last place.
That's James.
I mean, let's be real. This was Audrey's weakest book, and the illustrations show that. And if anybody disagree, it's because you're glazing on James's wheels too much. That's all I gotta say. Other than that, this isn't a bad book by any means. I just feel like James's character arc was a little bit rushed since it kind of takes some liberties from Thomas's character arc, which I found pretty sad. But like I said at the beginning. Well, I don't think I said that at the beginning. The point is, RG was at a deadline when he wrote this book, and everything in it kind of shows. But I do like the story James didn't express, and besides, I mean, come on. I just like to see Gordon get the one-up by another character. I just like that. Other than that, James the Red Engine isn't a bad book. It's just the illustrations and James's rushed character arc is kind of what drags the book down for me. And if my grandmother is watching this, which I doubt because I'm forcing her to watch this, listen, I'm sorry. I know James is your favorite character, but listen, this book is bad, and I'll show you it when the video's over. Okay, on to number 25, I believe.
Thomas.
You did. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
Thomas Tank Engine again. Wait, that's not the name of the title. Yep. Oh. Tank Engine Thomas Again is a book with more Thomas the Tank Engine. Yeah, I mess with this book, honestly. I like the story, Thomas and Birdie, Thomas, Terrence, and the Snow. Yeah, I like those books, Thomas and the Guard. I said books. I like those stories, Thomas and the Guard. Other than that, I say it's a pretty okay book. Some nice stories about Thomas on the branch line before Mavis, Percy, and Toby even came to Sodor. And I think it's nice to have a book introduced to that. It's just, I consider it filler, honestly. Listen, it was between this or James the Red Engine, and I say I made a pretty good decision. Would you rather have a book with new stories with a character whose arc is complete, or just have a story with or a book with a character who has basically the same arc as the main protagonist in a TV show? Exactly, that's what I thought. Other than that, Tank Engine Thomas Again is a pretty good book to me. The only problem, well, two problems actually. One of the problems I have with it is, how should I put this, honestly, the title and how, yeah, just the title and the title, those are my two problems. Anyways, on to number 25, Why didn't I write a script?
Because there's
Troublesome Engines is the book that introduced Percy. Yeah, that's all. You guys could skip to number 23 now. But seriously though, Troublesome Engines is a story that introduced Percy and gave us iconic stories like Percy Runs Away, Trouble in Sheds, Henry and the Elephant, and so on and so forth. But other than that, let's be real, the only thing that we can remember from this book is Percy, because Percy will be a mainstay character and be later on one of the few main casts in the TV series, so yeah. That's all I gotta say. This book just introduced Percy. Good day. I'm not gonna lie to you, I kind of wanted to put this in the top 10, but after thinking, maybe I'm glazing the book too much, but no joke, Percy's Small Engine really isn't a bad book. It introduces a lot of stuff, like some nice character dynamics that would soon later on be fleshed out more in the TV series, like Percy and Doug's dynamic, Thomas and Percy's dynamic, Percy and Harold's dynamic. I like that. I like how this how this book introduced a fan favorite character, and if you know, you know. It's the water tanker, duh. And I heard some issues with how the illustrations look bad, and I'm gonna be real with you, yes, I can see it. The scaling looks wrong, and Eric, what am I saying? The scaling looks wrong. But this is the book with a lot of good illustrations, like, for example, this one. You can see how nice the lighting detail is. I mean, come on. But I overlooked those issues, and I find Percy, the Small Engine, a pretty good book, just not top 20 or top 10 worthy. Okay, on to number 22.
Scotland forever!
Donald and Douglas are the best siblings in Thomas the Tank Engine, and this is the book that introduced them. Not only them, but the concept of the engines can have siblings. And I liked it. I like how we later find out that Donald was the one that Sir Thomas had purchased and Douglas was the stowaway. I like how Sir Thomas was on the mainland buying off Douglas and those two being a valuable part of the railway. There's just one problem with this book that really makes it stay at number 22 place. It's the missing coach. Because of how confusing and how stupid it is. I mean, of course that you will get caught. Your plan was so brain dead stupid. Literally, that's just sad and stupid. Other than that, I consider The Twin Engines a pretty good book. This was also going to be at least in 20th place, but I did not put it there due to that story really dragging it down. But other than that, the story is pretty neat. The concept of the engines having siblings, introducing the best twin engines in all of Thomas the Tank Engine, and if any of you guys say that it's Bill and Ben, you know you're lying. Other than that, I think that's all I have to say about this, sadly. But anyway, on to number 21, because we are getting close to the top 20, and I am excited for that.
A little tram engine, Toby is his name.
Alright, I'm gonna be honest with you, I kinda like Toby the Tram Engine. It's not anything significant, it's not like, Duck and the Diesel worthy or Enterprising Engines worthy, but it's a pretty decent book. The illustrations and little details with the tramway engines is pretty nice, and I like how this is, how should I put this? We get to see a new location outside of Sodor, and I like it. It's just that, how should I put this? I don't know, but I wish Wilbert did more with Toby. Feels like Christopher did more with Toby, because, you know, Christopher's favorite character is Toby. But other than that, Toby the Tram Engine is a pretty decent book. I like the railway. Oh my god, what have I said? I like the tramway railway. Other than that, trying to think. Other than that, I say it's a pretty decent book. Just, I don't know. I just find it's a pretty decent book, and I overall enjoy it. And because I want to get to number 20 real quick, because I'm gonna pissed off so many Thomas fans with putting this in 20, and I'm so happy of doing that. Okay, let's go.
I just don't like Edward. He's old. He smells like shit. I just don't like him.
Honestly, I find Edward the Blue Engine pretty good. I think that's all I have to say for now. No, seriously though, I find Edward the Blue Engine pretty good. I like his stories, and he really does have a character arc in here, which I like because he's already developed. Dang, why didn't I write a script for this? Well, anyways, as I was saying, the point is, Edward the Blue Engine is a book that I enjoy. I like the stories with Edward and how he affects the characters in this story. Old Iron is definitely the standout out of all the stories in the book. But I was originally going to put this in number 15 place, but I don't know. There's some things just dragging this book down for me. But other than that, I gotta say, Edward the Blue Engine is a pretty decent book. Like I said, Old Iron is the standout. Saved from Scrap and Birdie's Chase. Even though I just call it Birdie the sequel, but your title for the story is better, I guess, Wilbert. Other than that, I gotta say, Edward the Blue Engine is a pretty decent book. And I like how, well, I wouldn't say I like how, but I like to believe that Edward went over to the Scarlet Lily Railway to get repaired. That's why. You know what the point is? Let's go on to number 19 already so I can piss you guys off even more. Trevor is a creep.
I wanted an Atlantic, and that son of a sent me that! What the fuck?
Bet you were expecting this at least in the top 10, huh? But seriously though, Henry the Green Engine is a pretty okay book. I don't like how after Henry got into his crash with the Flying Kipper, the people who sat in the caboose were scolding at him for spoiling their hot cocoa. Like, you guys almost died, right? So, and Henry basically almost died, so you guys are scolding at him right after he basically almost died. Let's be real, people do that. But other than that, Henry the Green Engine is a book I enjoy. I like the story. Cole Flying Kipper is definitely the standout. I did not know why is there a story with Percy and dealing with scarves, but I guess people liked Percy for some reason. I sure don't. But other than that, Henry the Green Engine is a pretty decent book. I kind of like it. It was between this or Edward the Blue Engine, and like I said in a community post, these two are my favorite character, and they easily share number one, but I'm gonna have to go with Henry, and I think you guys know why. But Henry the Green Engine is a pretty fair and decent book, and I like how Audrey basically just said this. From here on out, the Railway series is set in the real life world because it confirmed this. Crew is a thing in Thomas the Tank Engine, and that Thomas is supposed to be set in a real life world basis. So, I like that. Other than that, Henry the Green Engine is a pretty fair and decent book, and I don't know, I think it deserves its spot in number 19. On with number 18, because I believe from here on out, this is where the ranking becomes a little bit more better for me. Now on to continuing the video.
Hello, Daisy the Diesel.
Diesel rail car. Thank you very much.
Psst. This might sound crazy, but I think I like branch line engines. The reason why I believe I like branch line engines is because, I mean, come on, it's pretty good. I like the story, Thomas Comes to Breakfast, Daisy, Bullseyes, and Percy's Predicament. To me, the standout of this book is a two-way tie between Daisy and Thomas Comes to Breakfast. Because, number one, Daisy is a new character that I wish Audrey did more with. And she's, like I said in the Big or Big Adventures video, or at least hinted, she is my favorite female Thomas character. Thomas Comes to Breakfast is another standout in this book because it just introduces flat running board Thomas. I do not like it, but pretty neat. And I like Percy's predicament because, like I said, we get to see Percy get into a crash. Like, not actually see it, but see an illustration at least. Bullseye's is a... But other than that, I say this book is pretty decent, and I kind of prefer it in 18th place. But I kind of wanted to put this in 10th place because I don't know, I think it's nostalgia. I don't know, maybe it's TV series. Maybe it's TV series nostalgia blinding me with this book. But other than that, this is a pretty decent book, and I say is pretty much enjoyable for the most. Now, on to number 17. Oh yeah, another thing I want to mention about this book. Well, not the book, more like Daisy's character. Audrey, you completely robbed us of showing what Daisy's character development is, because you just completely retconned that with tramway engines. Okay, let's go on to number 17.
Know our ways. Nothing anywhere can compare with our Fat Controller's engines.
The 8 Famous Engines is a book that Audrey wanted it to be the finale, but I can see why it's not, because he was in his prime, and if he stops now, we wouldn't have those good books. But as I was saying, the 8 Famous Engines is an amazing book. The theme of the story, from what I can see, or what I believe, is the engines going out exploring new horizons. Like Percy wanted to see what's beyond the danger sign and fell into that sea like the stupid little green caterpillar on wheels he is. And Toby exploring to the mainland only to be broken down like the dumb old teapot that he is, and James saving, well, not necessarily saving him, but pulling him. And Gordon going all the way to London like the Chad he is. Everyone has something to do here. Except for Edward. They always do Edward dirty. Edward fans, I'm sorry. They do our boy dirty. But seriously though, The 8 Famous Engines is an amazing book to me because it just shows the way of exploring new horizons. The standout in this book is, without a doubt, to no one's shocker, is Gordon Goes Foreign, due to his clever inside joke about London's connectional terminus routes. Why did I not write a script for this? As I was saying, and the final story all comes together with the engines going to London basically to London. Yeah, I think that's all I gotta say about 8 Famous Engines. It's just an amazing book. On to number 16.
Yes, the little engine's coming home.
Now, me personally, Little Old Engines is the weakest Scarlet Railway book in terms of Wilbert's books, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad book. I like the stories like Home at Last. It's a nice introduction to catch us up on what happened to Scarlet Lily Railway after what happened. The story Trucks is a nice little story, and I finally understand how the Trucks got confused on that being Sir Handel. It's because they're wearing the same livery. Of course you will understand how confusing it is. And I also like the story Rock and Roll. I mean, it's always a winner to see Duncan go because he could really rock and roll. And the last story, Little Old Twins, is... Wait, hold on. I think that's the title of it. Hold on a minute. Yeah, and the title of the story is Little Old Twins. So I think that story is a nice way to end off the book, really. If I had one gripe with it, we need Rheneas. Like, where is Rheneas during all of this? I want to see my boy Rheneas. Well, on to number 15.
Toby's a
Now, I originally heard that this wasn't supposed to be the finale, and that Duke the Lost Engine was supposed to be the series finale to the Railway series, at least with Wilbert's run. but I could see. I could see why Duke the Lost Engine would be preferred to be Wilbert Audrey's final Railway Series book. But Tramway Engines isn't a bad book. It's pretty decent, actually. Dare I say, even great. I like how this is the book that introduces Mavis. Now, I don't like how she was influenced by Daisy, because like I said, we were robbed of Daisy's character development arc or whatever, but hey, at least Wilbert Audrey did something with Mavis. Other than that, I say the stories in here are pretty great, honestly. My favorite out of the 4 stories is easily Ghost Train. I found it funny, and I like how the dark atmosphere of the illustrations is shown through the story. Another honorable mention when it comes to the stories is Woolly Bear. I do not know why, I just found that story pretty funny, to be honest with you. But if there's like 1 or 2 maybe biggest gripes with this, is definitely how Wilbert basically kind of retconned how we thought Daisy was going to change. And I don't know, this being like Wilbert's final Railway Series book, that's like my 2 biggest problems with this. Another thing that I liked about this book is how Toby was literally a couple of meters away from Mavis when she was stuck. Listen, I'm gonna say this again. If my grandmother is watching this, which I know, because I'm forcing her to watch this, how was Toby not your favorite character?
I'm a great Western engine. I shouldn't have to shiver.
Oliver the Great Western Engine isn't really a noteworthy book, but I like it. It's just a bunch of nice stories on the Little Western, and a story where we get to see a bunch of new character dynamics and how they play off of with each other. My favorite character dynamic in this book is Duck and Donald. I wish we saw more of that, specifically in the TV series, but we're not going to get started on that. This is Railway Series. My favorite story from this book is Easily Told Stands By. And I'm going to be real with you, I do not know how I feel about Boji. I don't even think I like the Boji story in here in general. I'm sorry. I know I'm going to get attacked by the fan for saying that, but I don't even care anymore. I already lost enough. Anyways, Donald's Duck is another one of my favorites from this story, and reshort as whatever that title of the story is good. But yeah, overall, I'll say this is a pretty decent book. The character dynamics and the way that they play off with each other are good. The books are very decent. The stories are very decent, and yeah, I mean, it's Oliver the Western Engine. It's basically just more fun times on the Little Western. Don't take it too seriously, just have fun on the Little Western. Think of it as like a little holiday. On to number 13.
They are the H engines running on the H track.
Okay, so this was my first time reading Mountain Engines, and all I had to say is I could kind of see why you guys would not like this book. A whole new railway full of new engines with nice, unique designs and a mountain high on Sodor. We see these engines once in this book and never again. I can understand why you guys would be mad about that. I would be too, but honestly, I think I feel like that's just, what is the word? More magical. Magical is a wrong word to put it, but I'll explain why. Because I believe that was the point, because I think Audrey wants us to imagine what happens to these characters after the book. Other than that, I gotta say, I like Mountain Engines. I found it overall pretty decent books. I like the characters' designs, even though I'm still questioning how they got faces on the back of them, but hey, I'm not even gonna start complaining on that. The stories in here are pretty good for, not even good, just enjoyable in general, to me at least. The 4 stories are split into 2. The first half is basically more like an exposition and an introduction to Cody and him. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say reminiscing, but basically a flashback on his introduction and his first run on the mountain railway and what happened to an engine. Rest in peace, Godric. Rest in peace. And the second half of the story switches from Cody to an engine named Lord Harry. I have nothing to say about his redemption arc, honestly. I think it's pretty good. But other than that, I say illustration-wise, I like it, honestly. There's only one illustration that really, really bugs me, and it's this one. Like, why is he looking at me like that? Someone help me. Someone help me, free me from this pain. But besides that, I say The Mountain Engines is a pretty amazing Railway Series book, honestly. And it deserves this place in number 13. On to number 12, because we are very close to the top 10, and after all of this, I can finally rest.
No more Peter Santana.
Gallant Old Engine is a pretty good book. Not even pretty good. I say pretty amazing in terms of its, I don't know, comedic. I found it funny in some areas. And I like how it shows the evolutions of the characters. Like, for example, when Peter Sam got his funnel ruined, and he has to get it replaced with his special funnel. That is showing their overall evolution and how they change throughout the Railway series. I mean, and you cannot expect me to at least put this in 12th place, because come on, it has Steamroller. And it's very, very funny. You gotta be real with me. Especially this narration, which is very iconic to Thomas fans.
You swank around with steamroller wheels, pretending you're as good as me. Actually, since I handle sweetly, I'm better. Goodbye.
Passengers and Polish is... Honestly, I don't even know about Passengers and Polish, honestly. I don't say anything noteworthy about this book. But one thing I found noteworthy is Gallant Old Engine. Finally, Rheneas has a story all to himself. About time. Cause we were robbed with 4 little engines. And Gallant Old Engines did the thing that his introduction book should have done. Give him an actual story. Other than that, I say Gallant Old Engine is a pretty decent book. I like the illustrations. Gallant Old Engine is definitely my favorite out of the 4 stories in this book. And I don't know. There's nothing really all that much to say anymore, for me at least. Other than that, you gotta wait for another narrow gauge video to come to this channel. And on to number 11. Gordon the Big Engine is the book that started Gordon's character arc. The story Off the Rails perfectly captures essence. That's where he is, off the rails, literally and metaphorically. All because he doesn't want to pull a goods train. Like, Gordon, listen, man, I know people love you, but I don't at this point. But later on, when to the story leaves, he rescues a distressed, well, I wouldn't say distressed James, but James who needs to learn when to stop being so cocky and learn when to actually do things right. Okay, what am I doing? As I was saying, and then the other story down the mine shows Gordon helping a Thomas who fell down the mine. And it all comes perfectly together in the final story, Paint Pots and Queens. And the point of the story, Paint Pots and Queens, is Gordon pulling the royal train, showing that he is no longer in his disgrace period, and this is his true start of his developing era. Other than that, I gotta say, Gordon the Big Blue Engine isn't really a bad book. I like it. I surprisingly like it. If anything, I find it one of Audrey's perfect books. Okay, maybe I'm glazing this book too much for saying that, but still. Other than that, I gotta say, this is a pretty decent book overall. The illustrations I found pretty neat, even though this is a Dolby book. Other than that, Gordon the Big Blue Engine is a book that I pretty much enjoy. Why isn't it in 10th place then? Here we are. We're at the top 10, folks. Ones that I believe that are 8, 9, or 10 out of 10 in terms of Thomas the Tank Engine. Let's go on to number 10.
His name is Stepney, but everyone calls him the Bluebell Engine.
Bluebells forever.
Yeah, I want to make this clear for a moment. I like Stephanie the Bluebell Engine, and I honestly did not expect this to at least make this to the top 10. This is basically just a promotional book for the Bluebell Railway, and I gotta say, Audrey did not have to go this hard for a book that's literally just marketing for a railway, but he did go hard for the book, and I gotta say, the book is just wow. I like the story. Bold Out is definitely the standout. I like the story that tells us all the engines on the Bluebell Railway. The illustrations here are just ascending. Listen, we need a Thomas 2D animated show that actually has good 2D animation, and I would like the animation style to look like these illustrations, because God, these illustrations are ascending. I gotta say, I like how the introduction book is explaining to the audience what's happening in railway, what's happening to steam. They're all getting scrapped, and diesels are the new rail contraptions coming. And I gotta say, it's kind of some dark stuff to me, but I don't say it's too dark. Other than that, I like Stephanie the Bluebell Engine. I consider it one of my favorite Railway Series books on this list, and I think it deserves its rightful place in number 10.
It all starts with this.
Ah yes, the Free Railway Engines. The book that created not only a legacy, but a whole fan following that will carry on that legacy until I don't even know anymore. Anyways, the Free Railway Engines is a pretty nice book, and I like how it's basically just a bunch of stories leading up to a final book, honestly. This is during when Soda was still in its development, where things are still being created, things were still being discovered. And this is usually, this book is the start of Edward, Henry, and Gordon's character arcs, the Free Railway Engines. And I gotta say, I like it. My favorite out of the 4 stories on here is Easy. It's Come Out Henry. I don't know why. Other than that, I gotta say this is a pretty decent book. Edward's Day Out is a nice simple book with Edward, of course, because let's be real, Edward is a Chad. Gordon's too fat in Edward and Gordon. And the other one is The Sad Story of Henry. Because he's an ignorant, stupid little piece of crap that was soon later on to become one of the biggest Chads in the entire series. And the final story comes together, which is Edward, Gordon, and Henry, which is basically just all 3 of them going back home and Henry being a valuable member of the railway. You guys know I didn't. You guys know what I mean when I say that. Other than that, this is a pretty nice book that introduced not only a fandom and a whole entire franchise, but a legacy that will be continue on. I do not know how long though. Just yeah, it's the Free Railway Engines. Have fun with it.
Thomas, we love you.
Now this might be the most overplayed used book in the entire series and franchise, but let's be real, this is a good book either way, no matter how overplayed it is. Thomas's character arc is so well established, and it has a nice beginning and end in the entire book. Thomas wants to see the world. He accomplishes his goals. He had some issues. It was trial and error for him, but the point is he got what he wanted. The first story, Thomas and Gordon. We know Thomas's personality from the jump. He's cheeky, he's cocky, he's a selfish little immigrant. But later on for the story, we see him progress and become more responsible. Sure, he's still cheeky at sometimes, but let's be honest. We do the same thing too. But other than that, Thomas's character arc is well established, and it was perfectly finished in Thomas and the Breakdown trade where he saves the runaway James. All I gotta say is, it's Thomas the Tank Engine, man. You know it's good. It's a good book for your children, and let's be real. Who doesn't see themselves in Thomas's shoes, even when they're young, even when you're young or old? Other than that, Thomas the Tank Engine is a solid book, for what I could say. On to number 7.
Old engines can't pull trains like the young ones can. They can if they're mended, Old Faithful, smiled his driver. And that's what's going to happen to you.
Four Little Engines is an amazing railway series book. Right off the bat, we get introduced to this new railway that was never seen before. Audrey took a lot of inspiration from the Teleclin Railway, and it really shows. The first story, Scarlet Remembers, I like that. And I like the messing, not necessarily the message, but what the meaning of the book is. Reminiscing on old memories that you have with a friend or a family member. The second story I like is Sir Handel. Basically, it's just a story showing Sir Handel's personality, and I gotta say, I really like that. Peter, Sam, and the refreshment lady is pretty relatable for me, because Peter Sam is impatient waiting for the refreshment lady. But besides that, I gotta say, this book is really good. And the final story, Old Faithful, is a nice ending to the book. Now, in my opinion, this is the second best Scarlet Railway series book. This is the second best Scarlet Railway book written by Wilbert Audrey to me. And I gotta say, I like it, honestly. It's a nice introduction to the Scarlet Railway and the fleet of engines. If I have one problem, it's how we don't see Rheneas. That's all I gotta say. Now we're going to number 6. We're not on the top 5 yet.
There are 2 ways of doing things, Duck told him. The Great Western Way or the wrong way. I'm Great Western and don't we know it's Great Wrong.
This book is what introduces Diesels. Oh, and Diesel too, I guess, if we're gonna include him. And this book focuses on Duck. What is this book about exactly? Well, the famous engine City of Troy came over to Sodor, and basically Audrey just saying that he don't believe that the A4 classes were the first engine to go 100 miles per hour. Now on to the actual juicy stuff. Diesel is a new engine that comes onto the island, and Doug decided to use his big-headedness after the City of Troy visits to play a trick on Diesel, which will lead Duck to being framed when Diesel started calling the big engine's names to the trucks. And then in the final story, it shows Duck saving the day when a runaway train started to go over to the barbershop. Sounds like a lot to handle, right? Yeah, it does. But seriously though, this book is really good. I like the story A Close Shave, but the real good thing about this book is the theme of diesels and how they will affect the series later on. And another thing I like about this book is how similar Duck and Diesel are. Diesel is literally nothing special, just plain black, no special livery, not even his livery symbol. He is literally just a black diesel, one of a million types, easy to not care for. Same goes with Duck. He is also one in a million type. Sure, he has a special livery, but still, he's just one in a million type. He's like, there's like 564 of the Pioneer tank engines, and there's like 800 of the diesels, I believe. So like, they're nothing special. They are literally the same symbolically. Audrey knew what he was doing. And shout out to Unlucky Tug for figuring it out. I want you to know Unlucky Tug figured that out. So it's up to him. Other than that, This book is really good, honestly. My favorite story out of the 4 stories in this is easily A Close Shave due to the excitement of it. And I like I like the symbolism between Duck and Diesel, and also the fact that we never knew what happened to Diesel kind of really drags it for me and why I put it in 6th place. But I do have a fear that Edward told Sir Topham Hatt. Anyways, as I was saying, this is a really nice book. I like Doug's redemption arc. Well, okay, not necessarily redemption arc, but character arc, and how he comes to save the day at the end. Because this is his book. For God's sakes, his name is in the title. And before anyone says, well, Diesel's name is in the title, no, it says Dud Diesel. Get it right. Other than that, I'm tired. Let's go on to the top 5, because this is where I really get annoying and start talking about how much I love these books. Small Railway Engines does a great thing when it comes to introducing new characters. Here we have 3 new engines, or should I say Arlesdale engines. Rex, Bert, and Mike. And all I gotta say is, I like Rex, Bert, and Mike. I really do. And I gotta say, I had a fun time reading those books with them. They all have each good personalities and not just blankly all the same personality. They have different personalities. And yeah, they all realize that they work better as a unit. But the best thing that this story does, well, not story, but the best thing that this book does is introducing new locations. Because, man, let's just say this is one of the heaviest lore books that Wilbert Audrey has made when he was alive. The heaviest part of the lore in this book is that we learn that there's an old standard gauge line that leads up to the Arlesdale Railway, and I just found that neat. Great job, Wilbert, for adding that in there. Speaking of Wilbert, we finally get to see him in the Railway series. Wilbert really said, you know what, screw it, this is my series and I'm adding myself in there. And he did exactly that, and all I gotta say is, I like it. And I like how they're gonna be a main, well, not necessarily main, but an important piece in the Railway series soon. Maybe the book will show up on this list. We may never know. Other than that, I say Small Railway Engines is a pretty decent book. The illustrations wise, I gotta say I like the illustrations and the stories too. Now that I'm mentioning stories, I like how Rex, Bert, and Mike both end, how all 3 of them end up in their own separate stories. Mike loses his whistles, Rex derails, and Bert gets mud splashed on him. I just found that very funny. Other than that, I say this is a pretty decent book. But, I don't know, I just like the book, honestly. And you know what they say, never overlook a little engine. I like mainline engines, because one thing, it introduces us to Bill, Ben, Boko, Edward's branch line, the start of Gordon's. I would like to say no longer being cocky in this period, that thanks to Boko, I believe. Other than that, I gotta say this is a pretty decent book. The world building is nice, introducing new characters is nice. But let's be real, the thing that really made me put this up here, and I said this in the video and in the community post, Edward shares #1 spot on my favorite character list with Henry, so, you know, I had to add him up here. Edward's exploits easily stand out in this entire book. Because, first of all, this is a nice ending to Edward's story and his journey throughout the entire series. I also like the illustrations, not just with the humans and the trains, of course, because of the scenery. I mean, come on, I'm a sucker for that. Other than that, I gotta say, Mainline Engines is a pretty decent book, but could you guys just call it Edward's Branch? Couldn't the title just be Edward's Branch? I don't even care anymore. Branch Line Engines is the title, but other than that, this is a pretty decent book. And on with the top 3.
I'm tired.
Ah yes, very old engines. The origin story book to Scarlily and Rheneas. The reason why I put this in number 3 is because this is easily one of the best Wilbur books in terms of world building and giving us origins on its characters. This is the story that shows us what life is like before Thomas, Edward, and Sir Topham Hatt. And this is a whole new era before where schemes were still trying to be figured out. You can tell by some glyphs in the illustrations, like this man trying to figure out how to start Scarloli. The book literally says how steam engines work. Now, tell me that isn't a clever detail that they added in there. Also, I like Neil in here. This is his first introduction and last, but still, I like Neil in here. Other than that, the first story is just basically about Scarloli's arrival to Sodor, and the second story is basically about Rhaenyra's arrival on Sodor too. And the first story is just basically about these two not only becoming friends, but brothers in a way. And all three stories build up to the two old geezers celebrating their 100th birthday and the Duke of Sodor arriving. But not the Duke that Peter Sam thought it was gonna be. Honorable mention about that, I like how it's basically just a cliffhanger, because we had to wait like 4 more stories until we find out who the mysterious Duke Peter Sam thought it was gonna be. And I found that pretty neat. Other than that, I say this is a pretty decent book. I like the world building, I like the illustrations, because God, the illustrations are amazing and nice and detailing, because literally the colors, the humans, the small little details that is basically reminding us that this was during a time before Thomas and Edward came. I like it. Overall, Very Old Engines is a neat book and I love it. And it deserves its place in the big three. Anyways, on to number 2, because I want to make Thomas fans very pissed off with number 2.
Chant. Engines come, engines go, Grandpuff goes on forever.
Duke the Lost Engine is Wilbert Awdry's magnum opus, and I could see how it is. Wilbert Awdry has been hinting this to the readers for years and years, with subtle mentions of Peter, Sam, and Sir Handel's old line. And I gotta say, all those subtle nods has finally paid off. We get to know where Peter, Sam, and Sir Handel come from, and who was Peter Sam concerned about. Remember what I said about Wilbert and Finn and Fat Clergyman? Remember what I said about the Finn and Fat Clergyman? And how they might be a big help? Well, they are here. The Fat Clergyman found Duke on accident. And that is such a clever way of bringing these two characters and making them important to a book. A book! I don't know what to say, man. I just found this book extremely clever. Every hint and foreshadow has led up to this. We get to know the most important thing, other than who was the Duke that Peter Sam was concerned about. We get to know where Peter, Sam, and Sir Handel came from and what is the online that they mentioned. I would like to get into stories before I get started on my favorite stuff about this. The book opens up as an exposition telling us who Duke and Peter, Sam, and Sir Handel are. Peter, Sam, and Sir Handel were originally named Stewart and Falcon respectively during that time, and they used to work on the line called the Mint Sodor, but it sadly got shut down and Stewart and Falcon were bought off, but nobody wanted Duke, so they sent him in a shed. Until years later, the Finn and Fat Clergyman stumbled upon the shed, and the Fat Clergyman, the Fat Clergyman found Duke, and now Duke is back reunited with Peter, Sam, and Sir Handel. My favorite story out of the 4 is easily Sleeping Beauty. I just like the story. I like this book in general. This is Wilbert Awdry's magnum opus. Everything he has been building up was leading up to this. And I can't respect that more. The illustrations here are, dare I say it, the best there ever was. This is the true finale to the Railway series, and I'm gonna accept it as that. I promise. I will do a remake of this book one day. I promise. Wait, why isn't it number 1 then?
The past is our interpretation, our future is our aspiration, and our present is a day just waiting to be seized. These are the tales of the enterprising engines, and their exploits will never cease to be.
Now let's be real, you guys knew that I was going to put this in number 1. Because I hinted this so many times. Just by videos alone. I literally do almost, like, I did like 4 videos that involve stories, and 1 whole video that literally remakes the entire events of the book. You guys should know by now that this is going to be a number 1. Enterprising Engines is my number 1 pick in my ranking of my Railway series ranking. In terms of Wilbert's books, that is. I consider this to be Wilbert's best book. Now, Duke the Lost Engine is Wilbert Awdry's magnum opus. But this is Wilbert Awdry's best book. This book is a nice ending to Henry's arc, and this would have been a nice ending to Gordon's arc if Christopher hasn't continued the long-going Gordon arc, but still. And this is a good book that caps off the stories of the Little Western. And the reason why I say that is because Douglas saves Oliver, which I believe is a little nice hint, not necessarily hint, but a little nice parallel, since basically Donald rescued Douglas from scrap since he was necessarily a stowaway, and I found it nice because Douglas saving Oliver from scrap kind of making him a stowaway. See, the parallels in this book and the other books that came before is pretty nice. Other than that, this is not Wilbert Awdry's magnum opus, because like I said like 5 times already, Duke the Lost Engine is Wilbert Awdry's magnum opus, but this is Wilbert Awdry's best book. The stories in here, I will get this out the way. Civil Rescue is easily a standout out of the 4 stories. If anyone disagrees with me, that's cool, I don't care. Tenders for Henry is a pretty nice introduction, showing how Gordon is currently feeling, and how when Flying Scotsman came, his attitude turned around. And Escape, I mean, come on, it's Escape. We like it for several reasons. It's Escape. It's Escape. I mean, come on. And the final story showing how everything is after the events of each book is pretty nice, with Bear joining the railway, Oliver joining the Little Western, and Scotsman departing. Oh, crud, I forgot to mention Bear. Bear is one of my favorite Diesels, even though this is literally the only book where he does something. Bear is a pretty nice character. I wish Christopher did more with him, but hey, the Railway series is already ended. It has already ended, so it's too late for that. Other than that, Bear is a nice character, and I like how he basically isn't racist towards the steam engines. He just looks up to them. Other than that, I say Enterprising Engines is a nice way to cap up the standard gauge engine stories. This is not Wilbert Awdry's magnum opus, but I consider this to be his best book. And all I gotta say is, that's my ranking in terms of Wilbert's books. Wait, I got one last thing to show you guys. But before I show you guys something, happy late 79th anniversary to the Railway series.